Good morning, everyone. This is the Empowering Youth in Community Projects webinar hosted by the Alaska Region Training and Technical Assistance, a resource for administration for Native Americans, aka ANA. About ANA, ANA promotes self-efficiency for Native Americans by providing discretionary grant funding for community-based projects and provides training technical assistance to eligible tribes and Native organizations. ANA's vision is Native communities are thriving. About the Alaska Region TTA Center, the regional director is Anthony Chioli, training manager is Angela Camus, technical assistant manager is Charles Peel, the outreach and technology specialist is myself, Lynn Marie Church. So what do? We provide free training, we provide free technical assistance. For more information, go to our website at www.ana.org. And if you want other resources, check out the National ANA website, which is listed in this slide. Upcoming deadlines for the White House Tribal Nations Conference 2016 is August 22, so if you would like to attend this conference, please submit your application before the deadline. And other upcoming events, the next webinar is hosted by the Eastern Region on August 25, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can also look on the other side for the PP3 development trainings that are happening in all the regions. And if you'd like more information, please check out their websites. Today is a very exciting topic because we're going to talk about empowering youth in community projects. Engaging youth in community development is vital for many Native communities, and coming up with a strategy and developing and implementing a youth organization model can be difficult. However, there are several youth organizations around the state of Alaska inspiring youth to take the lead in community projects, which has a positive impact on their lives and their future goals and careers. Our goal today is to share these models and initiatives with you so that you might adapt them and meet the needs in your own communities. Representing the Alaska Heritage Institute is Jasmine James. Representing Alaska Youth for Environmental Action is Allison Barnwell. Representing First Alaskans Institute are Amy Tyrell and Dewey HOFFMAN. A little bit about Jasmine James. She's the Youth Language and Youth Project Manager. She was raised in Yakutat, Alaska, and currently resides in Juneau, Alaska. She's the project director, and she's a mother, language activist, MAT student, and a future educator. Here you go, James. You can take the floor now.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction. So I will just jump right into it. So I had the pleasure of being the project director on the Yishade Naki Yan, the New Young Leaders Urban and Rural Project, which was an ANA SEDS project, which had three major components. It was leadership academies for high school Native Alaskan youth, the Youth Leadership Council, a regional youth leadership council for those same students, and then the Educational Advisory Council, which was comprised of Native Alaskan educators and language coordinators that advised us on our leadership academies and our curriculum and our approach. And they were often local individuals that helped us recruit and stay in touch with our students throughout the year. So the focus of this project and our leadership academies were to instill pride and strength and identity, and encourage lifelong learning and community engagement, and to really engage our students beyond high school as well. And we really made a focus in our academies to provide educational experiences that were infused with our core cultural values: Ha'ani, our land; Hashagun, our past, present, and future; Halatzin, our strength and leadership; and Wuxiach, balance, reciprocity, and respect. And so all of our academies had that focus, and it was ingrained within all of our activities that we were doing, whether they were in the classroom or they were out kayaking. We always tied into those cultural values. So one piece that was unique about the New Young Leaders was the urban and rural exchange. And so we hosted our academies in both urban and rural communities to really provide diverse opportunities and the opportunity for students to really shine in their own place. So those that grew up in rural communities really were able to take that leadership role when we were in their community. And then when we were in our urban communities, those students also had an opportunity to shine. So in year one, we were in our urban community. So here in Juneau, we were hosted at the University of Alaska Southeast. We had 36 students that stayed on campus, and they did leadership and language, Tlingit, Haida, and Shimalgik, and worked on life skills and resume building, and really had the opportunity to be on campus and to experience what that was like, so that hopefully we could make that bridge between high school and the college environment. In year two, we went into our rural communities. We had hosted 2 leadership academies, one in Prince of Wales and the second in Angoon. And we had 16 students in each of those academies, and we're supported by multiple community organizations in each of those communities. And so each of these academies focused on community service projects, and that's what's shown in these photos here. Is on the Prince of Wales Academy, they worked with a local artist, Ronnie Fairbanks, and this was a part of their program. They designed this panel. They decided as a group what they wanted to do as their service project in that community, and it ended up to be this this panel. And they designed it, and they did the artwork, and they painted it, all as students, and then they were able to install it at the Kowak City schools here at the end of their 2-week stay there. And there was a big celebration with the community to share. And then in Angoon, the students had been working, the Angoon students had been working on a community garden as a part of their school project. So it was decided that we would further support that project, and it was a part of our 2-week stay there. We worked on expanding the garden. We planted some seedlings when we first got started, and we had little tiny seedlings to add to their garden by the end of our 2-week stay. It was also a huge mess when we got into that garden, and coming in and out of it, we ended up kind of tracking a lot of muck into the school, and our students decided that was a problem, so we decided to address it, and we're able to work with the organization there to donate some rock for us. And so the city came and dropped that rock on the entryway into the community garden, and all of our students kind of laid that, so it has this really nice walkway, driveway up into the community garden now, which makes it more accessible and less stressful on the teachers that are using that community garden on a regular basis. So in in our rural communities, we were really able to focus on subsistence and food sovereignty, and we did a lot of harvesting fish and greens, and it really gave those students enough that have done that, like, as a part of their everyday life, to be able to share that with our more urban students. Some of them coming from out of Washington who had never been able to catch and process fish before, and so that was a great way to connect them with their cultural identity that they may not have had an opportunity to connect with before. And for our leadership course, as a part of these academies, we did the Gallup Strength Finders to really focus on the individual strengths of our students as a part of our academy, and we connected all of those to our back to our core cultural values, and where those strengths come from our land and our past and our present, and then through how that's seen our leadership. And then in our third year of our leadership academies, we were hosted once again here in Juneau at the University of Alaska Southeast. And we were able to focus on Native education in Alaska and our history of Angsta and Anilka, and all of the groundwork that was done by previous generations, which allowed us to touch on topics such as social justice and equity and equality, and the role that our students play in that, and the advocacy that they can do for themselves. And we also focused on college and life skills. Again, since we were on campus, we had the opportunity to bring in some of the career development individuals from the University of Alaska, and they focused on resume and scholarship essay writing. We once again used the Gallup Strength Finders to really focus on the strength within our students, and the cultural values, those cultural strengths that our students bring into the classroom and into the communities, and how to best write about themselves in scholarship essays and in resumes to really bring those strengths to the front. As a part of this academy, we also had language and that connection to identity. And we were able to offer, again, all three languages, Shamalgik, Tlingit, and Hagkil. Even though we only had 3 Shamalgik speakers, it was really important that everybody was represented and every language was represented at our academies. And we were fortunate that the timing of our academy lined up really nicely with the White House Tribal Youth Gathering, and we were able to tune in and stream Michelle Obama's keynote address as a part of our Leadership Academy. And that tied really nicely into the Gen I Challenge and our focus on youth action plans. Since we were on campus, we did more of the kind of thought work and development of youth action plans, and we didn't actually get to do the community service projects. But it was a great opportunity to talk about our youth action plans and have it be student driven. And so with the baseline work that we had done of the history of our people, and where we're at and where we've come from, our students chose topics that were of interest to them. So housing of natives in Southeast Alaska, environmental solutions to pollution and animal cruelty, specifically in Heidelberg, language and education for Native students, and obesity in Native communities. So we took those ideas that the students really wanted to know more about and to address, because those were issues that they saw within their own communities. And we went through the whole process of logic models and community assets, and we were able to develop, the students were able to develop really great plans as to who were all the resources that they could reach out to support them to address these issues in their community. And the students were able to present to each other, get some feedback, and then at the closing of our academy, they all presented here at Sealaska Heritage in our clan house to instructors, to board members, to family members, and it was pretty amazing to see them speak on issues that mattered to them and how that they could address it themselves. For the final piece of this project, we brought together in September of 2015 our regional youth leadership members. So since it was in the middle of school, we were only able to round up 6 of our students, but they were amazing. They came and stayed in Juneau for an intense three-day long weekend session, along with one of our amazing education advisors and longtime chaperones, Eva Rowan. So we had students from Metlakatla, Angoon, and Klawock. And they were given the option to focus on the youth action plans that were done in the previous academy, which all of them happened to attend. And they chose to focus on language and education and obesity in Native communities. And so in our whirlwind intense session, we went over again logic models, looking at the resources within their communities, what activities would they do to address the issues that they saw, what are the outputs that they were hoping to see after they put a plan in place, and what were their short-term and long-term goals, and the impacts that they hope to see within their communities. And we also really focused on community assets, because so often, especially in the grant world, you know, we focus on those community deficits and what are our issues and what is wrong. So we really wanted to turn that and look at our communities as assets and as positive resources. And we also expanded on the community resources and community assets by taking a really close look at the communities that our students were from and doing some community asset mapping to really have concrete resources within their community and individuals that they could reach out to support them for Native language classes, for youth activities and extracurricular activities that would address Native youth obesity. And we really encourage the students to view themselves and their communities as assets and to acknowledge and utilize the strengths that were within them. So once again, we went back to those cultural values and the things that we hold within us as Indigenous people. So at the end of all of that, we had amazing presentations. And one of the advantages of being at SHI is we are just down the street from our legislators. And so we were able to walk up the hill and gain an audience with Kathy Munoz, Sam Keto, and a representative from Dennis Egan's office. And we were able to present here at the Capitol to them. And it was awesome because they allowed them to sit up in front, and Kathy and Sam sat as the audience and was really engaged and listened to what our youth had to say. And then they took it one step further than we had hoped, and they asked questions and wanted to know more about how they could support these youth in their communities to address these issues. And then they gave them really positive feedback of other avenues that they could go through to support them financially, with resources, with other individuals. So it was a really phenomenal experience to watch as a project coordinator. So, and that was the culminating event and the close of this that ANA grant. Just to review what our goals were for that, this ANA grant was instilling pride and cultural and strength, and bringing in those cultural values to be viewed as assets, both as individuals and as communities that contribute. And also to have that urban and rural exchange. It was really interesting to see the different strengths that different students brought to the classroom and to the academies, depending on where they were from. And then also the life and academic skills that were really focused on when we were here at the University of Alaska Southeast, to really give students tools that they can carry on after high school. And that is the end of my presentation. Here's some contact information. I included Jackie Kukesh, our educational director, as tomorrow actually is my last day at the Alaska Heritage Institute. So, and I guess we're opening up for any questions at this time. Is that right, Lynn?
Yes, we have questions for 5 minutes. Whoever has questions, please type in your question in the chat box, and then we'll go from there.
So did I have a group? Did I have a group that focused more on addressing problems? I don't know if I could ask for some clarification. Our students in year 3 with their youth action plans, we talked about some of the issues that they saw in their communities. And that's how we landed on the 4 action plans that were done during as a part of the academy with the housing for natives in Southeast Alaska. They saw that as an issue. Environmental solutions to pollution and animal cruelty in Heidelberg. They saw environmental pollution and animal cruelty as an issue. And then the language and education, they saw the lack of Indigenous language within their schools as an issue that they wanted to address. That particularly came from students out of Metlakatla who there are very few Shmalgic speakers, and they have this hunger and desire for the language, and they want it to be a part of their everyday schooling, and they want to have opportunities to have community language gatherings, and so that is why they brought that as one of their issues that they would like to see addressed, and really focused on how to address it. Who were the resources that were there? We were able to connect them with the Hayek Foundation, who is now providing Shmalgic language community gatherings. So they were addressing issues that they felt were problems within their community and how to solve them as youth.
Is there any more questions before we move on to the next speaker? Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you.
So our next speaker is Allison Barnwell. She is the Youth Organizing Coordinator. She was raised in Unalaska and Seward. She joined the AYEA program when she was in high school, and then when she was in college in Southern California, she worked on a few environmental campaigns in the lower 48, and then when she returned to Alaska, she became one of the leaders at AYEA. You can speak now, Allison.
Let's see, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Allison.
Okay, cool. Great. Well, I work for Alaska Youth for Environmental Action. And like Lynn just said, I got involved when I was in high school in Seward, and as well as my coworker and several other people that work at our organization, AYEA served as the leadership training that we needed to become leaders in the environmental movement now. AYEA stands for Alaska Youth for Environmental Action. We call it AYEA for short. It's just a lot easier. Our vision is to create a statewide movement of diverse young Alaskans who have the skills, connections, and inspiration to effectively advocate for our communities and environment. Okay. So AYEA started back in 1998. There are 6 teams from Anchorage and Kodiak that saw issues with the environment in their communities and wanted to do something about it. They asked a couple of adults to help them find some funding, and the first AYEA chapter started. Since then, it has just taken off. It's become a statewide program, and we have a strong emphasis now on connecting rural and urban Alaskans and bringing teams together to work on these different issues that they see in their communities. Since 1998, 1,500 youth from over 150 villages and cities have come to our trainings, which we call summits. And they've learned about civic engagement, environmental education, have had real skills training to be able to work on the issues they see. We have kind of a twofold way of reaching youth. We have the trainings or summits, but we also encourage youth to go back to their communities and reach out to their peers throughout the year when they're not at these trainings. And so my job as staff at AYEA is to support those youth in their community activism as well as the summits. And as you can see here on the screen, since 1998, we've estimated that about 5,500 teams have been somehow involved with AYEA projects, and that is from all across the state. So youth are a vital part of our communities, and we really believe that they should be actively engaged in strengthening and solving the issues we face. So some of our vision, our values here are healthy environments, intercultural connections, youth leadership, justice, sustainable communities, and flexibility. But this really means that we above all value what the youth see as issues, as problems, and want to support them in acting on those issues and becoming leaders so that as we continue to face new problems, they are able to step up and engage their communities, organize their communities, and be able to do something about those things they care about. It's a youth-led model. So basically what that means is we're not telling youth what to do. We don't do things for them. either. We allow them to determine what they would like to work on, and we allow them to take the actions to actually do something about the problems they see. So we provide the skills, and we provide as many connections as possible. We bring people together, often that's through funds, through mentors, through connecting them with their leaders in their communities or statewide. But they are driving the whole program, and that is our big goal. Cool. So we have a very statewide participation. Since I've been at AYEA, which is the past 2 years now, as staff, our focus has been on statewide decisions, and this really comes from the teams. Teams are visionaries, and every time I talk to them, I'm just so amazed at what they want to accomplish with their lives. And our goal is to make sure that they understand that there are some limits to what we're able to do, but I'm continually impressed by those teams that put their mind to it can accomplish a whole bunch. So we have worked with youth from all the different communities on the screen, and in the past 2 years they've chosen to work on climate change, which means that they've really identified statewide level decisions as the place where they want to have the largest impact. And so we have been aiming to give them some of the ideas and skills to be able to make an impact on climate change, but they are driving and deciding what to do about it. A little bit in the process of how that happens is we bring 16 to 24 teams together. They apply to come to our summits, and we bring them together for the summit in the fall where they choose an issue to focus on. And what we call it a statewide campaign. It's kind of more of an action plan to be able to do something about that issue that they identified together in a group at that summit as the issue they'd like to tackle for the rest of the year. At the summit, we also help them strategize and plan out what they'll do in their communities when they return. And this really hinges on them staying connected and being part of this statewide group. So this means that they are talking to each other over conference calls, over social media, talking to us as well as staff throughout the year. So another key part of AYEA is that we really are providing support, but they're providing support to each other. And a key part of this is making sure that we're building bridges with diverse youth. And I think this is also just part of being in Alaska and having so many different cultures and different tribes. We try to provide some cross-cultural training at our summits and instill some understanding, empathy, and pride in the youth coming from different cultures and backgrounds. We also, I mean, this is constantly a struggle, but I think the biggest thing that AYEA has provided for me when I was in the program and now for youth that I talk to coming out of the program is that they are coming together to focus on a common goal, and they've identified similar issues in their communities. So they're working together to develop plans, to do something about it, and work towards a common uniting goal. And this really comes to light when you look at what our makeup of AYEA is. And so this is from, I believe, a year and a half ago. But we really try to bring in as many people from all over the state. Last year, we actually had quite a few more youth from villages than we did from cities, and what we consider cities is generally along the rail belt. So that was a pretty cool thing to see. And they've all been in contact with each other since their summits as well. and continue to come back to them. Cool. So the long-term goals of AYEA, so we've already kind of touched on these, but empowering youth, allowing them to step up as advocates for their communities, for Alaska, connecting teams together, diverse teams together, and providing some space for them to come to understand cross-culturally where each other are coming from. And then we also really do have this third focus, which is policy and actually having an impact on what's going on in our state and in our communities. And so what I've experienced, again, is youth are visionaries. Our goal is to help them achieve what they can, and often this means a lot smaller projects like trash cleanups and beach cleanups. Those happen a whole bunch, or maybe it means screening a video to educate about climate change. But often it means that these youth want to share their stories far and wide. They want to talk to as many important people as possible about the things that they're passionate about, and they really want to have the large-scale impact that when youth come together they can actually achieve. So what we do is try to connect them with leaders in our state to share those stories and ask for change. So over the past 2 years, as the teams have been working on climate change, we've connected them with the governor. They asked for a climate change task force to be created in the state so that they could look at climate change mitigation and adaptation. They spoke just this last March with the Lieutenant Governor about the same issue, as well as reducing carbon emissions, going directly to the source of climate change. They have met with their senators and representatives from all across the state in Juneau. And then we've also flown all the way to D.C. to meet with the Alaska delegation, met with White House officials, and the list is pretty long there. I think one of the most incredible stories here on of one of the youth that we've worked with over the past year is Esau Sanook. And he comes from Shishmaref, which Shishmaref is rapidly losing land to rising sea level, and just again was a visionary, a young visionary, and pretty much I think the third day he was with AYEA decided he was going to fly to D.C. the next week. He found another program that he could join that would do that. He flew to Washington, D.C., came back and was super motivated and decided he wanted to go to COP21, Conference of Parties, to actually talk about Shishmaref and climate refugees and the reality of that in Alaska and for his community. So he then flew to Paris and has since been to D.C. as many times, or I don't know how many times now. He won the President's Climate Activism Award, got to present at the White House. There's some incredible stories of what he's doing, but I think the best part of that story is that he wants to run for governor when he's older. And that's just one story. I think Esau is pretty exceptional. There's every once in a while I come across a youth that will be that driven, but there's also a lot of other youth that we work with. Jamie Sandifer is one of the teams that I've been spending a lot of time with, and she comes from Tyonek, which is a village threatened by a coal mine, a proposed coal mine, and she's just been outspoken on that. Just published an op-ed that we helped her write in multiple papers across the state in Juneau and ADN. And then Caitlin Phillips, I think she's another great story, is came to one of our AS summits and was just super inspired and came home and right away gathered all of her friends to form an AYA chapter in Barrow, and within 2 weeks of returning from the summit had organized a trash cleanup. She won't send me pictures or anything, but I hear it was well attended. And so that's just some of the things that our young people are able to do when they are setting their minds to it and have some support from adults to be able to make that happen. So here's the annual process. The the way that we bring people in and help them influence change together. We begin with the Youth Organizing Summit this year in September, so coming up quick. The youth choose the issue that they'd like to work on. They form a plan, typically a loose plan, for what they're going to do about it in their communities when they return home. We also talk about and follow up on what their plan is, their action plan is throughout the year in what we call the yearly campaign. You can see a little picture here of one of the actions that Anchorage Youth organized. And the Anchorage chapter of AYEA is a really diverse chapter as well, which is super exciting because I think that's one of the things that we are able to do well within the city. But they organized a march to raise awareness around COP21 and support USAW. We had over 50 people in attendance, and it was a freezing day out at Westchester Lagoon. So that was pretty cool to see. They then, after working on the campaign all year, generally talking to peers about the issue, they are organizing events, presenting in their classrooms, just a variety of different things that they're doing on the issue. They'll come together in Juneau, where we have our Civics and Conservation Summit, and this is where they're able to talk about what they've been working on all year with their legislators and often the governor or lieutenant governor. We try to give them some idea of how to communicate well about their issues, and definitely take pride in not just the work that they've done, but also where they're coming from, their culture, and expressing any of the issues that they are concerned about. A lot of the young people that we worked with this year, for example, were very concerned about education funding and access to subsistence. And so those were two things that we were able to focus on a lot in Juneau and talk to our legislators about. And then generally what happens is a lot of these teams are involved for multiple years. Some come and go. But when they graduate, we still try to be a part of supporting them. We try to give teams access to as many opportunities as possible for internships, jobs, and professional development afterwards as well. So I'm regularly sending out emails with different opportunities, trying to keep track of all the alumni. We have an alumni gathering each year, and a lot of the alumni are a key part to making sure that our summits and our campaigns are successful now. So 2 years ago when we went to DC, we had an alumni working there in DC, and it was pretty great to be able to go hang out at his office and talk to him about how the team should form their presentations to the Alaska delegation. So it's pretty cool to see the leaders coming up through the program and then taking that and really doing something with their lives. So the impacts of AYEA, this is just based off of short evaluations that we were able to give at the end of most of our summits, but I think it just shows a huge amount of success. And I think this is really based on the fact that youth feel a lot of ownership over AYEA because they are choosing the issue, they're choosing the plan, they are teaching each other the skills. We try to make that happen as much as possible. So you can see here that leadership is a huge part of it, being environmental stewards and being involved in protecting the environment. Diversity of culture and race in Alaska. I think AYEA does a good job of bringing people together on that. I know when I was in high school, it was one of my first times actually meeting young people from the village and also young people from Anchorage. So really, really different experience there. And then 80% of respondents are more involved in environmental and civic action today. And you see that long after they graduate from AYEA. So great. Well, that's all I've got for you guys. Definitely stay in contact. We have a pretty active social media, so any of these you can follow what the teams are up to. And we can open it up for questions now.
If you have questions for Allison, just please type them on the text box and she will respond. Thank you.
And the question is AYEA national? Oh, I see there's a question or a comment above that about burning trash. I don't think that we've run any specific campaign on that, like statewide, but right now we don't have too many youth from Nome involved, so yeah, if you guys know youth from Nome that want to be involved in AYEA, that would be a great project for them to lead, definitely. Anyways, is AYEA national? No, AYEA is not national. We are supported here. We're a program of Alaska Center, formerly Alaska Center for the Environment and Alaska Conservation Voters. So that's a lot of support here within the state. And then we also have some ties to League of Conservation Voters, which is a national group. Generally, that comes in the form of support when we fly to DC once a year to kind of end the school year and be able to talk to our Alaska delegation about the campaign or the action plans that the youth did. No, I wish it was national. The next Civic Summit is in March. I haven't set the exact date yet, but generally it happens around March 15th to the 19th. And applications for that generally will open in January. And so that's something that we try to spread as far as possible. But due to, of course, funding issues and then also trying to keep the group as tight as possible, we have a limit to the number of young people that we can bring to Juneau. And that's generally around 20 to 25 youth. So yeah, I send those applications out in January and take applications through February before booking the flights to get there.
Thank you, Allison, for your presentation, and we'll move on to our last speakers.
Thanks.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. I'm going to do the introductions, and then I'll pass it on to you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. Our next speaker is Emily Tyrell. She leads the development efforts for First Alaskans Institute with a special focus on advancing and achieving organization sustainability priorities while collaboratively creating a greater organizational impact. And she is originally from Imanak, Alaska, and currently resides in Anchorage. Along with her is Dewey HOFFMAN. He is the Leadership Development Director. He promotes positive youth development and leadership skills building through cultural-based education and civic engagement. He earned his BA at Dartmouth College in 2009, and he focused on Native American studies and Portuguese and Brazilian studies. And currently he's working on his master's degree in education from University of Alaska Fairbanks in the area of teaching and learning. So I'll pass it along to them. You guys can speak now.
Okay, Guiana and Ubla Lotak. My name is Emily Tyrell. My Yupik name is Tineknak Yagak. I'm originally from Imanak, Alaska, as Lynn had mentioned. And I have the honor of serving as the Director of Sustainability at First Alaskans. So just to go through our presentation, let me Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sanazun, hello everyone. Kaflia Sa'uza. My KOYUKON name is Kaflia. My family's from Ruby. Greetings to everyone out there. We're happy to be here sharing about our work today.
So just to give a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be taking a look at our community, just a quick glance, and then we're going to be talking a little bit about First Alaskans, or what we refer to as FAI. And then Dewey's going to touch on our leadership development work and really focus in on our upcoming conference. And then we're going to close it with our approach and then answer any questions that anyone might have.
So this map, you may have seen it before. It represents a broad spectrum of cultures and languages throughout Alaska. Also, as Indigenous people, we have relationships across modern-day borders. You can see on the Russian and the Canadian side that our peoples are the same people on the Siberian side as well as the Canadian side. You can see the Gwich'in and Han cultures extend throughout Alaska and Canada. And the red portion, KOYUKON, that's my culture group. Ruby is along the central Yukon. And central Yupik, where Emily is from, has many of the coastal communities. So another thing I wanted to highlight is that even though we're distinct, these are different languages. They're not dialects of Athabascan or dialects of Inuit. They're completely different. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner, there's a miniature of the blue ribbon of Inuit languages that extend from Canada through Alaska, as well as Greenland and Russia. They're part of the same linguistic family. And then the red ribbon of languages, the non-Dene family, extends through Alaska, Canada, and down into areas in the lower 48, such as the Southwest, and along the coast of California and Oregon. So just a quick idea to show that we have over 20 languages in the state, and we're distinct Alaska Native communities.
Thank you, Dewey. And we wanted to just take that time because oftentimes there are certain myths about Alaska, such as, does everyone live in igloos, or there's only one Alaska Native language. But I guess more serious myths are, there aren't any living cultures in Alaska, and that's something that we really want to, through our work, we really want to educate people and share that, yes, we have very vibrant cultures in Alaska, and it's not just looped into one culture. Some other, I guess, myths, if you will, are that there aren't any tribes in Alaska, when in fact we do have 229 federally recognized tribes. Our state currently doesn't recognize our tribes in Alaska, but hopefully that is something that's going to be changing with this administration. And the one thing that we do have up here, unlike the lower 48, is rather than coming up here, you would see that there are corporations. We have native corporations versus reservations. We do have one reservation, Metlakatla, but the Alaska Native Claims, thank you, ANCSA, as we refer to it, did create 13 corporations, and
over 200 village corporations.
Thank you, Dewey. And so we just wanted to just take a moment to really share that they are powerhouses for our state. They're economic engines, and I'm part of Doyon, and Dewey is part of Doyon as well. Unlike other corporations, they do have more social service responsibilities to our communities and to our people. So just wanted to touch on that a little bit. Another thing I want to share is that in Alaska, our community or the Alaska Native community represents nearly 20% of our total state population. Of that population, more than 60% of our Native people are living out in rural Alaska. And that's something to really keep in mind as we continue to go through our presentation. And here in Anchorage, we have the highest percentage of American Indian and Alaska Native people of any city. And I know for me, It's great to be able to connect with people here in Anchorage, although I love going back home and being out in rural Alaska, but we have a really strong Native community here in Anchorage. So moving on to First Alaskans, we are a statewide Alaska Native nonprofit organization. We were founded in 2000. Our mission is progress for the next 10,000 years. And really that's reflecting on the strength and the resiliency of our people. And it is a very, I guess, ambitious vision, but we really use that and we believe in it at the core of who we are as a Native nonprofit. Our mission is true to heritage and values. Alaska Natives are informed and engaged in leading the decisions that shape the future. We really advance our work through our values. So through our values of integrity, respect, Native knowledge, and responsibility, we put our community first and we lead from behind. The solutions that we really are looking for and the wisdom we get from our community. And we'll talk a little bit more about that with our approach. So on the right-hand side, you'll see that's a photo of our group. I often refer to our organization as small but mighty. We have 11 staff members. They're incredible people. Internally, we refer to ourselves as a family. I feel very fortunate to be able to work at First Alaskans, but also we get to work with some incredible people who are our board of trustees, such as Willie Hensley, Byron Malott, Valerie Davidson, just incredible people who are really, who have helped shape our state and who are still leaders today. We do have 4 initiative areas. Dewey's going to talk a little bit more about leadership development, but we do have a community engagement initiative, and under that we have our magazine as well as our community investment award. So not only are we a nonprofit, we also grant awards. Our magazine is a beautiful publication. We have about a readership rate of about 35,000. And moving on to organizational advancement, where my position is housed, that's really an internal focus with an external impact. And we're really trying to indigenize our organization. We're heavily engaged in some grant projects and partnerships such as Indigenous succession planning. But really within that initiative area, we're really looking at who we are as an organization, how are we living out our values as a Native nonprofit. And finally, with our Alaska Native Policy Center, we have our racial equity project called Andor. To date, we've hosted over 1,500 racial equity healing dialogues. In 2016, we had the first Racial Equity Summit in Alaska, and that really just, again, speaks to, although we are a small organization, we are a statewide organization, and at any given time, we can have Liz in Barrow or in New Zealand or Dewey down in the lower 48. So I'll hand it over to Dewey now.
Thank you, Emily. So this slide highlights some of our different areas where we promote leadership development across age groups. And if I were to describe some of the core elements of all these separate programs, is we're working through a lens of Alaska Native values. How can we advance understanding about what it means to be an Alaska Native leader, an Indigenous leader? We want to be able to bring our people home where they're from, as well as encourage education and growth opportunities wherever they are. So one example is this summer we have, hi Marcella. Oh, okay. One example is this summer we have our internship program where we are working with 18 Alaska Native young leaders from all over Alaska. One of them grew up in Seattle, and this is her first exposure to her Unanga culture. She is from the ALLISON chain. Her grandmother was relocated, and she's up here this summer spending 10 weeks immersed in her culture, and she got to travel out to her lands for the first time. And that's just one example of how our work can bring our people home and make connections across the state. There's of course others in our programs that grew up with their languages, their traditions, and We want to connect individuals like that too so that they can build a strong bond and stay linked together. We're linking arms across the state so that we can advance our Native community. And I'm a product of our leadership programs. I completed the summer internship in 2006. I also did our public policy fellowship, which is based down in our state capital in Juneau, and as well as participated in the First Nations Teachers Program. That's a partnership with Stanford University, the Nai Tahu of Aotearoa, and the Kanaka Maoli of Hawaii, and UH Manoa. So we also have programs in Washington, D.C. We hosted 2 Al Adams Young Political Leader interns in the office of Mark Begich. And our newest leadership development program is, again, how can we bring our talented people home or lift up those who are in their home communities in our rural areas to advance governance issues or policy issues at the local tribal level or even at the municipal or city level. So we're trying to touch on different age groups, elders, youth, our young working adults, our experienced leaders. And one thing we're going to highlight specifically is about our Elders and Youth Conference, which takes place every year, and how we use hands-on cultural activities to breathe new life into our communities and into our cultures. Here's a few images that we captured at the 2015 conference in Anchorage. We invite everyone to come up to Fairbanks, October 17 through 19, where we'll host the 34th Annual Elders and Youth Conference. This draws between 900 and 1,200 participants who register from across the state as youth, elders, or chaperones, or other supportive adults. But we also have different events that are open to the public, such as an arts and ops area for our young people to learn about opportunities or for folks to share about their work, as well as, I mentioned, hands-on cultural activities. You see some young women weaving cedar bark in the top left. The top right, they're doing a Southeast Tlingit dance workshop, learning how to dance, sing, and drum. In the lower right, they're building drums, and that's actually what our summer interns are doing today. We're at the Alaska Native Heritage Center right next door to Marcella. We're celebrating our end of season right at noon, so I'm going to be stepping out here shortly. And then the bottom left shows a group of Dena'ina language learners, and that's Tatiana Tickner, one of our outstanding young people who has been very active in the Gen I movement as a champion for change, top 25, under 25 at Unity. She just joined the Anchorage Youth Council, I think it's called. And young women like her are participating across the state to become involved and to make sure that we're grounded in our local communities and that we're always keeping in mind the perspective of our elders and our youth when we're creating these gatherings together. So these are some of the elements of the annual Elders and Youth Conference. It's really about carving out the time and space to promote an intergenerational transfer of knowledge. We know that when our elders and our youth get together, they're going to share stories, share laughs, and even share some hard lessons that they've learned or that they want people to know about so that we can pursue healing as a larger community. One fun fact is that one of our trustees that Emily mentioned, Valerie Davidson, she's currently the Commissioner for Alaska Department of Health and Human Services. She was a participant in the first Elders and Youth Conference back in 1984, I believe. And there were only about 25 youth, and since then we've grown each year to include upwards of 500 Alaska Native youth from across Alaska, from across the world. We've included Indigenous youth from Canada, from Hawaii, from Greenland, and we're always seeking ways to promote that exchange and learning from each other. It is volunteer-led, As I mentioned, Tatiana is one of the volunteers on our statewide Elder and Youth Council. We also have many, many people who come forward and volunteer their time. Marcella has participated before, and we partner with the Alaska Native Heritage Center, where we're calling in from today, on many of our planning as well. Just quickly, I'll also touch on the Men's and Women's House. That's a distinct way that we bring our people together. The Kazigek model is something that we've incorporated as a way to have our young men meet with our elder men and adults, and our young women meeting with their elder women and adults separately. And if there are individuals who, are transgender or intersex, we ask them to go to the house where they feel most comfortable. We understand there's some gender fluidity in our communities and different ways that people identify. And this is just a time to have together, to build bonds, to support one another, and create mentorship opportunities in sort of a more free-form structure. There's some burning questions, or maybe we'll promote a few different ideas to spur discussion, but really this time is just for the group to use and to share together.
And if I can touch on the last bullet point here, the funders and special guest invite. Historically, we've had a lot of funders and partners who are engaged with the Native community or want to learn more about the Native community. And so what we've been doing for the last 2 years is that we've been extending an invite to our funders, to anyone that is really just interested in taking off their hat. We're not going to roll out the red carpet. You're going to go through the conference just like, all of our other participants. But it's a great way to learn about our strong Native youth, our precious elders, but it's also a great way to meet our people where they're at versus having them meet you where you're at. So if you are interested in that, please reach out to me. I'm going to have my email on the last page. Last year we partnered with Philanthropy Northwest, and there was about 50 national funders who came up to attend our conference, which is really exciting. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to really quickly go through this. Our approach is really indigenous, and what I mean by that is the work that we're doing is very grounded in our culture and who we are in Native ways of knowing and being. The solutions are found within our communities. The wisdom that we have at First Alaskans, we're getting it from our communities. Just like the other two presentations, our work is very community-driven to really advance our people for the next 10,000 years. One thing that we do believe in at First Alaskans is that, DEWEY or I don't have the power to empower our youth or our people. They already have the power in themselves. They already have that leadership. And in every chair a leader, that's actually one of our guiding principles when we host a dialogue, that in every chair a leader. And as I mentioned, we are very intentional about meeting people where they're at versus having them meet us where we're at. Are there any questions? This is my email address. I know Dewey does have to run because he has our internship closeout celebration here in a couple minutes. But are there any questions that I can answer? Okay, so it doesn't look like there are any questions. So thank you to Anthony and to Lynn for this opportunity, Guyana, to everyone for calling in. We really look forward to maybe potentially working with you all. So thank you. We really appreciate it.
And I'm about to see everyone. Take good care.
Thank you for all the guest speakers that spoke in this webinar. For the recap for today, we went over ANA, and I introduced our Alaska Region TTA Center team and what we provide. And you just heard all the 3 wonderful youth organizations that are going on in Alaska. We will send out evaluations, and please do fill them out, and we'd like the feedbacks and comments. I'm going to pass the mic over to Charles. He's going to talk about the iLead program.
Hello, everyone. Let me remind you that any feedback that you guys give us is very helpful in determining what topics we use to present on, helping to kind of tailor these presentations to be of the most use to you guys. So any feedback you give us is greatly appreciated. Real quickly, we wanted to kind of recap on iLead program. This was a special funding opportunity that was created this year by the Administration for Native Americans under the Gen I initiative introduced by President Obama. It was designed to really do a lot of what we talked about today, to really focus in on implementing community projects to promote the Native youth resiliency, developing the proper parenting resources. It was really open to the communities to really kind of develop a youth-driven project. It was very unique, and we are in the process of, ANA is in the process of making the final determinations. It was a very well received project. I believe they received over 80 applications for this year, and we have not heard 100% if it will be another go around of it for this upcoming year. We do have strong hopes that they do continue forward with this. As you guys see, this is an issue that a lot of communities are passionate about, and ANA wants to see those communities be successful in empowering their youth. So we look forward to seeing if ANA will fund this again. And again, thank you guys for participating. If you guys have any questions further, please reach out to Lynn or myself. We will have our contact information here. We will be making the presentations available to you guys. We will push that out either later today or tomorrow.